While this slow, satisfying earwax removal plays out, I want to take you somewhere else for a moment. Not to a dark medieval village this time, but to a sunlit courtyard in ancient Greece, where wisdom flowed from the mouths of philosophers and medicine, still mingled with myth. Now, you might think the Greeks, founders of reason, of logic, of science, had all the answers when it came to healing. And in many ways, they were ahead of their time. But when it came to ear pain, their methods were a surprising dot, because while they understood the body in many ways, they still believed deeply in the balance of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow, bile. And when that balance was off, sickness followed. Ear pain, to them, wasn't just physical. It was energetic, emotional. It was a sign of imbalance, a sign that something inside or outside was wrong. So when someone came to an ancient Greek physician with ear pain, they wouldn't just inspect the ear. They would ask about the weather, your dreams, your recent mood, even what foods you've eaten. And then they would choose a remedy. And some of those remedies were unlike anything you'd expect. Asterisk, asterisk, let's start with the most common one: olive oil, used warm, sometimes infused with garlic or mint. The Greeks believed olive oil could soften whatever was trapped inside the ear, wax, wind, spirits, and help it come out. Sound familiar? Even today, doctors sometimes recommend olive oil to loosen impacted wax. So maybe they were onto something. But the Greeks didn't stop there. They added things: crushed herbs, burnt fig leaves, ground up beetles. Yes, you heard that right. There are texts that describe taking dried insects, crushed into powder, mixed with oil, and gently poured into the ear. Why? Because they believed these insects carried the essence of the earth. Their movement, their heat, their energy was thought to break up blockages in other recipes. The oil was mixed with ashes from wool or even burned hair. The ash was symbolic, a purifier. It was believed to drive out moisture demons or a cold wind from within. Then came more elaborate mixtures: goat's milk boiled with laurel, donkey's bile mixed with honey, even snakeskin steeped in vinegar. They didn't see this as strange. They saw it as sacred. Each ingredient carried meaning. Milk equals nurture. Laurel equals victory. Snake equals transformation. Ear pain, to them, was a battle, and they brought their best tools to the fight. Even the act of tilting the head to pour in the liquid was seen as symbolic. You weren't just treating the ear, you were releasing trapped imbalance, unblocking communication with the divine. Because The Greeks believed the ears were connected to spiritual clarity. If the ear was blocked, the soul couldn't listen, and neither could the mind. So healing the ear was about more than just pain. It was about restoring order to the world inside you. Asterisk, asterisk, of course. Some of these remedies seem dangerous now. Bile, insects, ash. By today's standards, they'd never be allowed in a clinic. But for the Greeks, healing wasn't just about results. It was about philosophy. They believed nature provided everything we need to heal. And the body, like the cosmos, was full of invisible forces trying to stay in harmony. They didn't separate medicine from spirituality. They didn't separate symptoms from the soul. And so, ear pain became a message, a whisper from within, asking to be heard. Asterisk, asterisk. Let's dive even deeper into the remedies themselves. Because while olive oil was the foundation, many of the treatments added more. Sometimes far more than we'd ever consider today. One of the strangest, a mixture of honey, ash, and goat urine. Yes, goat urine. This wasn't done lightly. The goat had to be young, healthy, preferably fed on fresh figs and barley. The urine was collected in the morning and mixed with honey, a sacred substance, and a pinch of ashdod. Why this combination? The Greeks believed the bitter, salty, warm nature of urine could expel what they called cold phlegm from the inner ear. Honey was used to soothe, ash to purify, and the warmth of the mixture was believed to open the body's pathways. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, how could this possibly help? And you'd be right to wonder. Modern medicine tells us that many of these substances are not sterile and could introduce bacteria or irritants. But at the time, these weren't seen as dirty. They were seen as elemental, straight from the body, a circle of healing. The Greeks had a word for this concept: physis, the vital force of nature. And anything taken from nature, even the body itself, was seen as having medicinal power when used with care. Asterisk, asterisk. Another common ingredient was garlic, not just for flavor, but for medicine. Greek doctors often advised soaking crushed garlic in oil, then warming it gently and placing a few drops into the ear canal. Garlic, they believed, could chase away evil winds, the ancient term for sudden pains and strange illnesses with no visible cause. Interestingly, garlic does contain allicin, a powerful antimicrobial compound. So once again, the folk logic may have had scientific merit behind it, even if the reasoning was mystical. Other remedies were gentler: rose oil, violet leaf compresses, warmed milk from a mother who had just given birth. All believed to carry life force to soften the pain of the inner ear and restore connection to the senses. But the Greeks didn't stop at liquids. They used sound. There are ancient instructions that describe using the low hum of stringed instruments plucked beside the head to help relieve blocked vibrations. They believed that hearing wasn't just about the ear, it was about resonance. If the body's internal harmony was off, sound could help reset it. Like tuning a harp, and so the physician would play quietly, repetitively, until the patient said the ringing had faded, or they fell asleep. This blend of medicine and music was deeply spiritual, and in temples across Greece, especially those dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing, patients would undergo full rituals for ear pain. They would fast, bathe, lie in quiet chambers, receive drops of sacred oil, and sleep as priests whispered prayers beside them. Some would wake claiming visions. Others claimed the pain was gone. Were they healed or simply calm? Perhaps both, because sometimes just being cared for, being seen, heard, touched gently, can create healing on its own. Asterisk. What's so fascinating about all this is that even with their odd ingredients and mystical beliefs, the Greeks truly observed the body. They knew ear pain often came with fever. That pressure in the ear caused dizziness. That warmth eased tension. They didn't have microscopes, but they had intuition, and they had rituals that made people feel safe, connected, listened to. And when you're in pain, sometimes that's more powerful than medicine. Asterisk. As time passed, ancient Greece gave way to new empires, new languages, new medicines, and slowly, many of these strange rituals began to fade. Olive oil remained, garlic endured, but the more mystical parts, the goat urine, the beetle ash, the temple chants, began to disappear from every day. Healing science grew stronger. Anatomy was mapped. The ear became not a place of spirits, but a system of delicate structures, nerves, bones, canals. The invisible gave way to the measurable. And yet, there's something beautiful about how the Greeks saw the ear. They didn't view it as a sealed machine, but as a gateway, a channel for harmony, for wisdom, for the soul to receive the world. And that reverence, that belief, that pain in the ear was a message, is something we might still learn from. Because even now, in an age of earbuds and endless noise, we rarely stop to appreciate the miracle of hearing, of balance, of silence, of listening. And yet, when our ear is blocked, when it rings, or throbs, or dulls, we're reminded instantly how fragile this connection really is. That's why people once turned to the wildest cures they could find, because losing that sense meant losing part of themselves. And so they poured oils, they whispered prayers, they played harps near the head, and mixed things we might now call strange. All in the hope of restoring connection. Asterisk, asterisk, today. We have safer methods, drops, irrigation, sterile tools, skilled doctors. But in some ways, we've also lost something. The slowness of care, the ritual of healing, the deep presence of a person kneeling beside you, warming oil by candlelight, and pouring it drop by drop, as if healing was sacred. That's what the Greeks believed, that every part of the body, even the smallest, was a reflection of the cosmos. And when something was off, you didn't just fix it, you listened to it. So as we end this session, as the ear is clean and the sound is open again, let's take a breath together, a slow, deep breath, in and out, and be grateful for what we can hear, for the strange stories that brought us here, and for the fact that, across time, humans have always done whatever they could to help each other feel whole again, even if it meant putting olive oil, or garlic, or yes, even crushed beetles into the ear of someone they loved. Thank you for listening. Sleep well, or enjoy your day, and remember, sometimes the weirdest remedies are born from the deepest care.